Hello, welcome to the Charles River Conservancy Parkland Show. My name is Renata von Scharner. I'm the founder and president of the Charles River Conservancy, and this show is always about the Charles River and its parklands. But today we are going to travel a little bit from the river, both downriver first and then upriver, because we have with us today the author of a wonderful new book. It's called Exploring the Charles River. Welcome, Kathleen Rowe.
Thank you very much, Renata.
And Kathleen wrote this book. It's a very special book, beautiful pictures, and it has also a story, but it's also a very usable book because it tells you where you find bathrooms, it tells you who the organizations are that work on the river, it tells you what festivals there are, it tells you where you can park, where you can rent a boat. It has some very practical information, so it's a very comprehensive book. So I'd like you to tell us, how did you come to write this book?
Well, it's the work of many years. When I first came to Boston, I was very much inspired by the fact that when I came up on the Red Line out of the underground, out of the dark underground, going from Boston to Cambridge, there was all of a sudden this beautiful sight in front of me of the Boston Basin. And on a sunny day in April with sailboats out there, and it just made a big impression on me. Now, we lived in Watertown after that, and we biked along the river, and I did take community boating lessons and all kinds of activity along there. So it just went on from there, and then I started to develop an interest in learning more, and I started researching and photographing and writing, and it just seemed like a natural.
Well, it has been a joy following that process. I think we've been working together,
yes,
or you've been showing me drafts over the last few years, and now this book is available, and you can find it on explorethecharles.com, and we'll have a credit at the end. And so we will, this is the picture you normally see on this show. This is the area where the Charles River Conservancy works, where we have 2,000 volunteers, where we are advocating for better biking, where we're building a skate park, swimming. So now we will be going mostly upriver in the book that Kathleen has written. This wonderful book, this is the cover, and this is the map of the entire Charles, and you will be seeing sections of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now, this particular, there was a controversy that it started in Hopkinton, and there were these little trickles of water that went across Granite Street, and it ended up, it appeared to go into the reservoir in Milford.
That was a discussion of where the river started.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And they've decided, it's pretty official, Milford is the source where the reservoir is. And there is the dam, and behind it, of course, the reservoir. And this does provide water for neighboring communities besides Milford. And there is another picture of the dam. And it's a very, it's a big surprise that such a small dam would then turn out to be the source of this interesting river, but it is. So in the next scene we see where the river is really a river now. It has come down from the dam, and it has flowed beneath the Dilla Street Bridge, and it actually flowed underneath the main street in the town of Milford, where there's a large church. And at first you say, where did the river go? And it turns out it went through a culvert.
It went underground.
Yes.
And you're going to take us now down to where the river ends, so to speak.
Yes, the mouth of the river, where it empties into the harbor. And we're going to start in Charlestown because it was on a rise of land there that in the 1700s, the Sons of Liberty were watching for a signal from the Old North Church in Boston, which has been well documented in Longfellow's poem. And they ran to tell Paul Revere and the rest of the group what they saw. And the two by sea meant that there were British in a boat crossing over the mouth of the river to get to the Charlestown side and start marching toward Concord and Lexington, where the stocks of ammunition were kept. So that is the beginning of our Revolutionary War. And this is a 5-acre park, and we start our tour here because it's a nice, manageable park. It's close to the where you can go to visit the Mystic the boat, rather the ship there, the Mystic ship, and also you can walk on the Freedom Trail. Paul Revere Park is marked on the Charleston side, I should say Charlestown, on the Charlestown side of the river.
And it's named because of the Revere's
History, yeah.
history, yes. And it's a lovely park that is still not very much known or used, but that will, of course, now change with the new pedestrian bridge, and it's a lovely park.
And I want to correct something I just said. I meant to indicate that it was the USS Constitution that people go to see, and they go very close to this park on
In
the
the
way
Navy
over.
Yard.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
yeah.
All right. Not the Mystic, but anyway.
Yeah.
So, yes, and this is showing the view at night, and believe it or not, you can get very close to that bridge and take a photograph at any time. So then, another important event that happened in the history of the river as we head upriver is that at one point the ocean was mingling with the water of the river, and it was creating health problems, and the people of the Back Bay wanted to do something about it, and others as well. And so in order to prevent that, because remember, this wasn't, at one time, the river mingled with the ocean, creating an estuary where there were a lot of fish, but at the same time, like I said, the waves would come in and bring...
The tide came in.
The tide
came in,
thank you.
that's right.
And then
yeah.
when it receded, it left behind a difficult situation, stench, and, very shallow, difficult situation. So they decided to build a dam, and in 1910 it was completed, and it was at the site of, if you look to the planetarium of the Museum of Science, we're behind it right now, looking at it from the Kendall Square area in Cambridge, that is where that dam was constructed. And there still is something left of it.
I'm going to push you forward because you have a long story to tell, and it's all in your book. So make sure the viewers will read your book to get all the details.
Okay, so this is the basin that was created by building the dam. And as you can see, it's a wonderful focus, not only aesthetically, but also recreationally with your boating place right there. And this is a view of the Longfellow Bridge from community boating. And going along the river, you'll see that there's a lagoon up there on the upper part that's on that side of the river, and there is what is known as Riverbend Park. You'll see how the river kind of bends around. And in that park area is the Weeks Footbridge, where a lot of activities take place in the summer.
And it has just been restored. There are now, the lights are back on, and there are now ramps. It's a whole newly restored bridge. It looks lovely. So this is still a pre-restoration picture.
Yes. Yes, and it's really in a nice, greener, more lush area where the river kind of widens out a bit, and then there's a lot of grass. Then there's the Weld Boathouse, which is right close to the footbridge and next to the Anderson Bridge, and across from Harvard. And this is on Memorial Drive, and in the next picture you'll see Memorial Drive on a Sunday afternoon in the summer, when it's closed to traffic and people can ride their bikes without any problems.
Yeah.
And these beautiful plane trees, which is a type of sycamore, they almost were cut down in the 60s when there was this talk about widening the road, and people stood up to the people that were going to do that, and under the woman's direction by the name of Halstead, said, no, we cannot have those trees go down. And so how fortunate we are to have those today.
And what also happens here every Sunday, starting on the 28th of June, actually the 22nd of June, is that there will be the Sunday Parkland Games right next to Memorial Drive, where there are free games from 3:30 to 6 every Sunday. And when people bike, they can also use those Sunday games.
Sounds great. So there's a lot there. And then this is the Cambridge Boathouse, and in front of it you can see someone in a scull, and during the regatta, the famous annual regatta, which has been going on since 1965, and the people that are across the river from us are watching, and there's just a huge crowd that goes out to see this with participants from all over the world. And this is just before the Elliott Bridge. And on the other side of the Elliott Bridge is another example of the recreation that can go on the river, and it is the Charles River Canoe and Kayak group, where you can rent a canoe or a kayak and go out yourself. And then there's the community rowing, which is over in Newton, across from Watertown, this is a place where anyone can go and learn how to row, any age or any person.
And what the Canoe and Kayak place, they now have also what's called a SUP, a stand-up paddleboard, which is a very popular new sport. It takes about 10 minutes to learn. It's very, very hard, and it's wonderful. It's like being a Venetian gondolier, and it's gondoliere, and it's a wonderful new sport.
It looks very strenuous, yes.
It's not strenuous at all. It's wonderful.
Oh, okay. Then you get from there, okay, you start to come into Watertown Square. And at the beginning of Watertown, you will see that there is a beginning of a trail. And just in that last slide, you saw the picture of a blue heron on a granite post. And those are all the way along the trail. Mm-hmm. And across there, the eastern part of that is the Greenway, which was designed in the late 90s. And is a wonderful walkway and bikeway for people to use. And Richard Saltonstall was the person who was sent by Governor Winthrop to establish the town of Watertown in the 1600s. And so we see this statue of him right near the square.
Near Watertown Square,
yes.
on the northern shore. Yes.
Yes. And prior to him, would you believe, a month before, Roger Clapp met with a group of natives and was concerned that there would be conflict. But the natives offered him a bass, and he in turn offered a piece of bread. And they got along okay, and as it turns out, that is the symbol that is on the Watertown town seal.
Mm. It's a lovely piece of sculpture, and it has recently been restored. It was quite neglected, so this is definitely worth a trip, and it's really tells the story very well.
Yes, and then you can go from there onto the trail itself and follow along. Just follow that blue heron symbol, and 6 miles is about
and somebody who deserves a lot of credit for that at the DCR is Dan Driscoll. Yeah. He is a planner, and he fought for years to get this trail built and to negotiate with adjacent landowners. And he has done an amazing job. I'm sure you talk about this trail in your book.
Oh, I do. And I did tell him at one point on an email I would send him a copy, and I'd better do that.
Yeah, he would love to see that.
And here are some stones that have been engraved along that trail. And that is an example of some of the fish that are in the river at that point. There are engravings of trees and different kinds of plants and reptiles, so it's quite an interesting walk if you know what to look for.
Yeah.
And there is the Blue Heron Bridge, really a centerpiece of that trail.
And it has it does a little bit of swinging. It's very exciting.
Yeah, a footbridge.
It's a light bridge, so it really is vibrating and it's alive.
Yes, it is. And then of course the walkway over the wetland area. And here again is the symbol to look for.
And that symbol follows you all along the river.
Yes.
All the way to Waltham, really.
Yes, and here is the Charles River Museum, I should say, the place of the industry that was started in the 1817, I believe it was, with...
So that's at the Moody Street Dam.
Yes, it is.
That's where the Museum of the Industry is, a very fascinating museum.
Oh, definitely. And let me add that the water that you see on the left is the dam part of it, the Moody Street Dam, which was then harnessed for the energy to create textiles and was the model by which the Lowell factory operated too.
Yeah.
And then that's a fish ladder on the right.
Yeah. Now, so when you explored that, did you do that some of it by foot, some of it by bike? Because there are bike paths all the way up there.
Both.
Both.
Yeah, and there were occasionally times when I could rent a boat, but it's mostly been by foot or a little bit of car driving and bicycling a lot.
Yeah, because all the way up, what we've seen so far, all the way up to the Waltham Dam, it's all accessible by bike.
Yes.
All the way from the harbor all the way up there.
Yes, it is.
And now the path continues further up. So it's really a wonderful way to explore the river. So let's
It is.
continue on our journey here.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. There is one more picture of Waltham. That's the back of the Waltham Watch Factory building. And that's been renovated a lot, and there's housing in there.
It's occupied by residents, and they look
Yes.
out onto the water and the lovely cemetery.
Mount
It's a
Vic,
beautiful,
yes.
it's a beautiful building, and it's so glad it's being reused. It's very attractive.
Yes. And this is very close to that, where the Run of the River takes place every year, and that's sponsored by the Charles River Watershed Association, which has been in effect since the mid-60s.
Yeah, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's been a wonderful organization of cleaning up the river and bringing it to a higher level than it was when they first started out. It was pretty sad in the mid-60s. But now we have, for example, not only the regatta, but we have the Run of the River that starts in Dedham and Needham. And different people can take their different boats out. And this is an example of a couple people portaging their boat out of the river so that they can go to another part in Waltham.
Yeah, they're doing wonderful work, and we have the pleasure of working with them on the Swimmable Charles and on advocacy work. So the various groups working on the river.
And then further along, after you leave the Waltham area and come into Newton, there is this wonderful place called
Echo
Bridge.
Echo Bridge,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Echo Bridge. And it's also called Hemlock Grove because there's some hemlocks in there. And it's the Sudbury Aqueduct that goes across the top, and you can walk across that and look down. And I have yet to find out from my art teacher exactly where it is, but there is a place that's called Motif Number 2 where an artist can go and do some wonderful painting related to the Motif Number 1 in Rockport. There's a Motif Number 2 there.
Ah, motif. I don't know.
M-O-T-I-F, yeah.
A kind of a special vista.
Yes, it is.
Very
And you
good.
can stand on that little platform and listen to your own echo.
Ah, yeah. And I think it's also very popular with young people to meet there.
It is, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think, and it's fascinating. There's so many spots along the river that are used by different groups and are very romantic spots. I know quite a few stories of people who have met or have taken their love and future spouse to the river. So it has, I think your book will let people know where some of these beautiful spots are and bring them there.
And I will address that whole issue of what's on the cover because that goes there.
All
and
right.
this is a picture of that bridge from down below. Very large arched bridge with the aqueduct going over. And then we come to another section after the bridge. We go down into West Roxbury and Dedham and Needham, which is actually on both sides of the river because of the Cutler Park that's over there. And again, you have another Charles River Canoe and Kayak in Needham on Nahanton Street where you can rent either type of boat. And it's funny how this is where the river takes a real turnaround. It just almost makes a 108, well, more than a 180 degree turn, almost a 360 degree turn. And then this will bring us up to Dover and Wellesley. And one of the things that we see let's see. Oh, and another thing too, it will take us to South Natick, this is the South Natick Bacon Library, which is very historical. And there were a group of Indians living there in that area in the 1600s and working with Charles Eliot, who was, John Eliot. He was a minister who actually translated the Bible into Algonquin. But unfortunately, things did not work out, and 2 years later, there was the terrible King Philip's War. But if you get a chance to go to that library, it's a wonderful field trip right near the dam. You can go down in the basement and see their little history museum. There's the front of it. It's at a very busy intersection, but a very special place. And here it is with the two grist stones from the mills.
And here is somebody obviously is painting.
Yes.
I found a motif number 3 there.
Maybe, yes,
Yeah.
at the dam. The
Yeah.
South Natick Dam, or the Natick Dam, I should
Yeah.
say.
And you know, when you live in urban Cambridge, this seems so far away, but we're all connected by the river, and you, by just following the river, you can get there.
It becomes your trail if you let it.
Yes.
It can lead you places.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful of how you document that and really create a travel guide for us all to explore the Upper Charles.
Yes. And there's the bridge. And at one time in the 1600s, Indians had developed a bridge over the river right there as well. This is still in Natick, South Natick.
And there the river is very shallow. It's not the big path to the west, to the gold that John Smith envisioned and told the prince about.
Oh, yes.
It's definitely a much more modest waterway.
He saw the bay, and that's what really threw him off.
The big mouth.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then going further upriver, we come to Sherborne, and this is the Broadmoor Sanctuary, and it has lovely trails where you can see all kinds of wildlife. And after that, as you move along, you will come to Elm Bank, and this is the site for the past few years. This has been since I think '03, the site of the Massachusetts Horticultural Society. And these are the 3 statues for the goddesses of grain and flowers and so forth that used to be on the roof of the building on
across the symphony.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So
And they
one
look
of them has, they look kind of lovely here.
They do, although
Yeah.
if you get close, you kind of think a little strange looking, but that's because they were created so
Yeah.
that people could see them up above.
I'm going to push you forward here because we are getting close to the
Okay.
end of our program.
Yes, okay.
And some lovely plants.
And a child's garden there.
The child's garden. Wonderful. So this is this is where we traveled, and this is in the book as a guide of.
Yes.
We start at the top of it and travel the 80 miles of the river, and I'm so grateful that you produced this book because it really puts things in context. And this is you looking over the river.
Well, this is in Medfield, and this is the part of the river that's wilder, you might say. There's a lot of hiking, not difficult hiking, but hiking at different parts
Yeah.
of the river here.
Yeah.
And that dam, by the way, is the Newton Lower Falls Dam.
On the
believe it or
picture,
not.
on the
Yes,
front. Yes.
yes. Beautiful place, and a nice little footbridge goes across.
And it's a lovely photograph because it captures the movement of the water in an amazing way.
Yes.
And this is how people can find the book, Explore the Charles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's available for sale now. Is there a particular price linked with it? What's the price of it?
It's $15.
Wow, that's a good value. That's wonderful.
I think so.
Yes.
And you can go to my website and follow my blog, which is every week from now on, of different things that I learn about the river and where we're going.
Wonderful. So you keep it alive with
Yes.
new information.
Yes, and Facebook. I'm on Facebook.
Yeah. So we all familiar with what's happening in Cambridge, but there is so much more to this river, and you introduced us to that, and you kind of added a whole new body of information. We had on this show several times Carl Hagland, that you
yes.
described. He wrote about the Court of Honor and the Urban Charles, and now you took us upriver. So I'm delighted that you did, and this has been a wonderful trip. So I want to thank you for writing the book, coming today, and opening that up for all of us. This
All of us.
will be a wonderful gift to us all.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.